Yo, what is going on, guys? And today I thought I'd share how I like to make my own anime heads, at least front-facing ones. This is more aimed for beginners and or intermediates or anyone who wants to freshen up their head skills. This is going to be a longer video with a lot of information. I'm going to go slow and explain everything I do, so I apologize if this is a little bit longer, but I really want to take it slow and show you exactly all the methods I'm using, why I'm using them, and how they work. This is going to be an anime girl head. You can really do this for a feminine male anime head, or if you want to make a more masculine one, all you have to do is change the jaw to be a little bit more thick than what I'm going to show you, and also the neck just needs to be a lot thicker. That's basically the only difference in this method. So if you want to do a male head, no worries, you can still follow this. So I want to explain some of the tools I'm going to be using before we start. So if you're familiar with them, you can feel free to skip ahead a little bit, but I just want to make sure that people who are beginning, they have the tools necessary. Alrighty, so just to get some tools out the way here. So firstly, we have our zoom in tool. This is something I use a lot, maybe a little too much because we have a preview window over here, but all you have to do is scroll your mouse wheel in and out. That's it. Or you can kind of click over here. The Z is the short. Then we have our brush tool. That's just B. This lets us paint on the canvas. So if you're not sure how to get back, if you actually hit like L or something and you have like your lines, just hit B and you'll be able to come back. Now, Control Z is something I use a lot. It allows you to go back in time. So if you messed up on a line or something, you just hit Control Z and voila, it disappears. Next is our space tool. This is a very strong tool. It lets us move the canvas around. So if you have a larger canvas or you want to kind of look into things a little bit more in detail without the zoom and go left or right, we can move the whole canvas by holding space and moving that. Next up is if we hit the brush tool, we see in the top our pixel perfect. Now I always keep this on, and what this does is it allows us to not form these jaggies as they call them, lines. It allows for a lot more smoother line transition. Next up is our G key, and that is going to be our paint bucket tool. This allows us to, let's say we have a circle or a square and we want to fill in those shapes. All we have to do is hit G and then click inside the shape, fills it with whatever color we want. It's super strong. I use this all the time. It is something you should learn to use. Next up is our symmetry tool. So if we hit B again, we go back to our brush tool, and you can see on my screen, we have these three symbols: vertical dotted line, a horizontal dotted line, and a triple dotted. If you don't see these tools, just go to view and then symmetry options. This allows us to mirror. Next up is a very strong tool, and I highly suggest you learn. The shortcut for this is the ellipse tool or shift U. It's also in the right. There's a fill in option, a fill out. So just watch out. I like to have mine just drawing a circle. Also, a quick tip is that if you hold the shift key for the circle, you can have it be a perfect circle every time instead of an ellipse. So I use this a lot, but sometimes I want the ellipse. It just depends, but shift is really strong. Next up, we have our magic wand. This is our W key, or if you see in the top right, it is our wand key. This allows us to click on any shape or object or whatever we made, and we can click on it, and it allows us to work with just that object or line or whatever we're using, so we don't accidentally paint outside of that area. So these are basically all the tools that I'm going to be using, and again, I'm going to explain them as well as I go, but I just wanted to let you guys know what these tools are beforehand so that you're more familiar with it, and if I pick up the pace a little bit throughout the video, you can kind of keep up. Alright guys, so we can finally start drawing our anime head. But before that, I want to mention the canvas size. So you can see here that I am using a 256 by 256 wide canvas for my head. This is very large, and if you're beginning, I recommend not doing this. This is way too much for a beginner. but this is the canvas size I'm comfortable with, and it's what I like to use. If you're just starting out, I would suggest having a canvas size of 64 by 64. You can even jump that up to 128 by 128, but you can definitely follow along with what I'm doing here. Just know that you don't need to have this canvas size. And you can always edit that by going into sprite and then canvas size right here. Then you can change it to whatever you like. So now that we got that out the way, we have our palette here. This is just a super simple palette. It's not really a big deal what colors you use here. You can even use black and white. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to do a lot of shading. We're going to grab our color we want to draw it with. And down here, we have our layers. I'm going to double click on this one and rename it to head. Then I'm going to hit Shift N. Shift P, that makes a new layer, and then Shift P lets us rename it so you don't have to double click. This is going to be guideline. So we're going to click our skin tone, and then with our ellipse tool, remember Shift U, we're going to go and make a circle. And I'm going to hold Shift here to make a perfect circle. You can make this circle any size you want. The smaller the size, the harder it is to do Loomis method that I'm going to show you a little bit later. Don't feel like you have to do this size. And this circle, by the way, I usually make it about 128 by 128. Again, feel free to make any circle size you want. Don't feel like you need to do this size. And what we're going to do is hit G and fill that in. Super easy. This is where the hardest part kind of comes into play. I'm going to hit W, and that's going to be our magic wand. We're clicking on the shape, and then we're going to go to guideline. And guideline, I'm going to double click this and change the opacity to 50%. This allows us to see the layer underneath as well as the one that we're working with. So now we are going to draw our lines on the face to kind of give us an outline. So we're going to hit W on the head, switch to guideline, hit L. We have our symmetry tool here. We're going to hit View and show symmetry options if you don't have it. I'm going to go right down the middle here. Now, what is this line? This line lets our eyes, our nose, and our mouth follow each other and keep us symmetrical. If I take this symmetry, you don't have to follow this, is a circle. But since this circle is vertical, is facing us, it's just a vertical line. But realistically, it's actually a circle. And this is why I'm doing a front-facing view first, because this circle actually gets a little bit complex. So just know that this vertical line allows us to have all our facial features follow each other and make sure that we're even Steven. Next is our brow line. So that is in the middle right now. And what this does is it really tilts our head up and down, while the vertical line tilts our head left and right. So just to show you guys, if we were to do this not in our front facing, this is what it would look like. And I'm going to add a little bit of tilt just to show you guys. Don't follow along on this, but I just want to show you guys. As you can see, it looks like a person is tilting their head slightly up and looking in this direction, right? So this line dictates which direction we're going to be tilting, up and down. That's how we add our tilts. And then this vertical line indicates which way where our head is rotated, either left or right. So that's how we add a little bit of interesting views. But for now, don't worry about this. Next is, this is going to be the hardest part. It took me a very long time to understand what this was. The head is not exactly round, right? There's actually, just imagine for a second that this is actually a side view. We're gonna have this circle here, and I'll explain what this circle is in a minute. This circle is actually the flat part of your head. And this is the most important part of drawing heads. It's called the Loomis method. What are all these quadrants and these lines mean? So this top line tells us where the hairline is. This middle line tells us where our brow line is. And then this bottom line tells us where our nose is. And then this quadrant right here tells us where our ear is. And our ear always perks up a little bit past our eyebrows. And then it always usually ends where our nose is. You can have this stylized, of course. And we're going to add that circle in the middle. And that circle in the middle, if you don't know, is always 2/3 the size of the original circle you made. And since, again, we're front facing, it's actually just going to look like a vertical line to us because we're not angling. So it's a little bit easier. What we're going to do is hit our line tool and we're going to find about 2/3. Like right here is even a little bit too much for me. It's about 2/3 here, honestly, but this is fine for me. I'm just going to draw a quick line about here to here. And then we're going to slice it in the middle. We have this. So what is this? This is our sliced off part. This is actually a plane change. This is flat. So it's not rounded. So it's not just going like this. It's not going to round out. It's flat. So we hit L, again, our line tool. We show a plane change. So this is rounded. And then this is chopped off. Go back to our guideline. And what we want to do here is actually make 4 quadrants. And what I like to look at for this is these 4 quadrants need to be equal in size. And this is going to indicate where our jaw is going. So now that we have this, the hard part is almost over. So remember that circle that we had, that Loomis circle? That was about, that is 2/3, right? The bottom part indicates our nose, but it also tells us where our jaw is. And how do we know where our jaw is going to land? Our circle is going to be around here. This is 1/3. So then, if you think about it like this length needs to be equal to however much this is dropping. So as long as these two are equal, you have like a perfect kind of face. I like to stylize it, but if you want the perfect looking head and don't know how to get the jaw down, all you need to know is that this circle, where this circle ends at the bottom, and we bring it over here, this needs to be equal with how much you drop this. So for me, I like to kind of guess it a little bit. I like to go a little bit smaller. This is clearly a little bit less than what it would be. And then the super fun part that took me a long time to figure out, there's 2 ways to draw a jaw. Well, there's a lot more, but the 2 methods you can do is you can drop this down a little bit, this line, and then you can come in like this. But I found a different method. It's about the same, but I like to come in with this line and then just bring it down. It takes a few tries and it's hard. It's not super easy to do. Don't be ashamed if this takes you multiple tries. This is a very hard thing to do. This took me a long time to understand. And then we're going to hit W. If you hit W and it highlights everything, you're on continuous. So get off of continuous. We're in guideline still. We're clicking in here. We're going to hit a eyedrop tool, our eye. Hit G. Go to head. And then we fill that in. Super simple, right? Now we're going back to guideline. Hit W again. Now we're taking continuous off. And we're going to click on this line that we made right here. So we hit W here. And I like to go with a darker shade. We go back to head. I'm going to put symmetry tool back on. Watch this. Watch how super easy this is. Guidelines off. Look at that. Already looking like a head. Super easy jaw. Really easy to do. And now we're going to go back to our guideline. We're going to add the ear. So I like to go with the darker shade again. Hit B for our brush. I like to start around here and come up. Make kind of a C shape and come down. I like to make my ears a little bit smaller than what we're going to fill that in. Take the guideline off. Look at that now. We just use the brush tool. And look at that. We got some ears. Let's make our neck. It's a little bit finicky. I'm not going to go into the anatomy of a neck. It's a little bit much right now. Just know that for a female, necks are typically a little bit shorter. I just kind of eyeball it right now. They have very small necks. So I use the line tool. Be careful not to bobblehead your characters. is the eye placement. The only rule you really need to know is that the eyes should be 1/3. It's a little finicky, 1/3 apart. So if you don't want them to look like super off, just follow that rule. I like to make my eyes like almonds, so we're gonna go back into our symmetry. We're in our white eye. So this is our plane change, but you can kind of ignore this a little bit, especially for like anime style heads. Like a super serious one would be like right here, and this is the size the eyes would be. But I like my eyes a little bit bigger, so I ignore this plane change a little bit sometimes. I like to come out and like I like bigger eyes. It's really easy to make like a Sid. See, look at that, it's already looking good. And then let's see, I hit M here, and I like to kind of check at the bottom. 31. How is that? 36. Look at that. Now we got some nice eyes. They're 1/3 away apart. So where do we put everything else? Good question. That's why we have the guideline. So we know from the ear that we made that the bottom of our circle is here. And remember, that's where our nose is. So if you want a super correct, our nose is about right there. I use the L tool, and then I hit Control Z. And then there's our nose. And then from our nose to our mouth, and from our mouth to the jaw is 1/3. So from here, it's about like, I would say like here, 21, 28. So we need to go up like this, 24, about 1/3. Look at that. And we are correct. Going back in. See, super simple. And then I just like to add some C's right here just to show a little shape. I'm not going to shade because that takes a long time. But just know that this is 1/3 apart. And then the eyes are also 1/3 apart always. So I hope that wasn't too much for you guys. So I'm going to show you now. This is our brow line, right? So we put our eyes underneath the brow line a little bit. We can actually... I should pass our brow line. And right here is where our eyebrows are supposed to be. But for anime girls, or any anime, I like to have taller eyebrows. So I go a lot higher. And you can have them coming in if you like, or coming out, whatever expression you want. Let's just go with just a easy blank expression. And for a quick, this is how I like to do my eyes. Looking at the person, you want to kind of have in the center. And then I usually do a lot of like shading at this point, but this is basically how you draw a head. But look at that, super easy to make this anime head. I hope you guys understood the methods that I was using. I know it's a lot of information. This information is really important for you to learn. And if you guys enjoyed this or have any questions, please let me know down below. And if you want me to do a in-depth guide on head tilts or heads at like the 3/4 or any kind of angle, I can do that. It's just a lot harder because remember that 2/3 circle, we need to know where that is in space. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. I hope this was helpful. Have a good one. Peace.